As we cruised into the second decade of the 21st century, a new legend galloped across the digital plains of gaming. Imagine a world where the crack of a revolver echoed under vast open skies and the line between right and wrong blurred like the dusty trails of the frontier. This world, meticulously crafted with the grit and spirit of the Old West, wasn't just a setting, it was a living, breathing universe of opportunity and peril. Red Dead Redemption, developed by Rockstar San Diego, rode into the hearts of gamers with its release in May of 2010. It wasn't merely a game, it was a doorway to the past, an invitation to step into the boots of John Marston, a former outlaw tasked with hunting down the members of his own gang to save his family. Today, we'll saddle up and journey through the creation and monumental impact of Red Dead Redemption, exploring how Rockstar breathed life into an open world and captured the essence of the American frontier. So tighten your cinch, load your six-shooter, and prepare to ride out as we take today's trip down memory card lane. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I hope these words find you well. Hello and welcome to the 194th episode of our video game history podcast, A Trip Down Memory Card Lane. Each week, we'll tell you a story relevant to the current week in gaming history. It can be about a game or the people that have created it. It can be about a console or the technology that brought it to life. We often talk about the companies that bring it all together, making our hobby, video games, a reality. While telling you each topic, we hope to teach you something new about it, what it took from the world as its inspiration, or what it gave back to the world in its legacy. Today, we're all going to learn about the development of Red Dead Redemption, an open world western that not only allowed players to explore an expansive frontier, but also set new benchmarks in storytelling and immersive gameplay. Released by Rockstar Games in May of 2010, this title brought the lawless and rugged world of the American West into the living room of millions of gamers, offering an unparalleled experience of freedom and choice. I'm David Casson, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, who's more likely to be found rustling cattle than coding. He's my brother, Rob Casson. Rob, what's the current head count of the herd?
I believe that herd is set to a value of 8, Dave.
Herd is set to a value of 8. I thought you were going to say 1. I thought you were going to go with the smallest herd ever to imply that you were awful with cattle, which is true, actually.
You don't know a damn thing, Dave. I
Have
love
you...
me a burger.
That's true. That's true. But have you ever experienced the burger before it's ground beef?
Yeah, I have.
Okay.
You have a family of in-laws with a farm.
Very true, and you have been there. Good point. Moving on. Gravy train. So what's going on this week in gaming history?
Well, kicking it off on May 12th, 1989, the gaming world welcomed the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles video game, released on the Nintendo Entertainment System. Developed by Konami, this game quickly became a beloved classic, capturing the adventurous spirit of the popular animated series. Players could control their favorite turtle, navigating through New York City and battling fierce enemies to thwart Shredder's evil plans and rescue April O'Neil. With its challenging gameplay, iconic 8-bit graphics, and faithful adaptation of the TMNT universe, this game not only solidified the franchise's place in video game history, but also became a staple of childhood entertainment for a generation. And I know
For
that
a
series slapped because Turtles in Time.
Well, Turtles in Time and the one after that, which was the arcade one, was killer. When they switched over to the arcade, like Turtles, Teenage Mutant Turtles, the arcade game, and they switched to that beat 'em up format that we love because of Turtles in Time, one of our favorite games ever. That's when it would did really well. Now this Turtles, yes, classic, cult classic, super hard. God, did I hate it when I was a kid because it was so hard. I hated it. Hated it, hated it, hated it.
Just
So,
meant you were bad.
I was as a kid, absolutely.
Yeah.
Nowadays, I feel things are different. Nowadays, I see all these kids playing, and they spend so much time that I feel like they're just in it, like completely in it, and they're good. Or maybe I'm just getting old and slow. But I don't think that was the case because I grew up in this weird period where like we still got kicked outside, but we came back to play video games, kind of thing, you know.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's all I have.
On May 13th, 1999, Mattel, the renowned toy manufacturer, made a significant move into the digital realm by acquiring The Learning Company. This acquisition was intended to transform Mattel from a traditional toy company into a major player in the educational software and digital gaming industries. The Learning Company was known for its popular educational titles like Reader Rabbit and The Oregon Trail, which were staples in schools and homes across America. However, the acquisition became infamous in the business world due to the unexpected financial loss that followed, leading to substantial impacts on Mattel's overall financial health. And we actually did an episode on the Oregon Trail, so if you want to learn about the Learning Company before they got acquired by Mattel, go check it out.
What episode? What episode? What episode? It was episode 66. That was a long, long time ago. I feel like we learned about Mattel somewhere else more recently too.
I'm sure we did, but I definitely remember the Oregon Trail one.
Yeah, the
Just
Oregon
that
Trail.
game.
I know that's a fun story, but now it's bothering me because I don't remember. I know we talked about Mattel, didn't we? Maybe it was the Spider-Man episode. Did
That might make sense.
Mattel make the Spider-Man video game? Maybe, I don't know.
I'm not sure.
Anyways, moving on.
Moving on May 14th, 2010, the gaming world received the psychological thriller Alan Wake, developed by Remedy Entertainment and published by Microsoft Studios. Set in the fictional small town of Bright Falls, the game follows the story of the titular character, a best selling thriller novelist who tries to uncover the mystery behind his wife's disappearance during their vacation. All the while, he experiences events from the plot of his latest novel, which he has no recollection of writing, coming to life. Alan Wake is celebrated for its narrative driven gameplay, TV series like episodic format, and its use of the environment, light, and darkness as central elements within its combat system. Its success spawned several DLCs and a spin off game, Alan Wake's American Nightmare, extending the eerie and engaging experience for fans.
Alan Wake is fantastic. I big fan.
Haven't played it, but it looks awesome, so absolutely. On May 15th, 2012, Max Payne 3 was released, marking the return of the tormented former detective Max Payne. Developed by Rockstar Studios, the game continues the gritty narrative and intense action that the series is known for. In this installment, Max is in Sao Paulo, Brazil, working in private security and fighting to protect his client in a city full of corruption and violence. Renowned for its cinematic storytelling, enhanced bullet time mechanics, and dark themes, Max Payne 3 received critical acclaim for its narrative depth and the seamless integration of interactive and cinematic gameplay. And we did an episode on the origin of that series, the original Max Payne. So, yeah.
Check out episode 47, where we learn all about Max Payne, not Remedy, Rockstar. And that specific Rockstar studio got its start in the demo scene. So we learned all about the demo scene.
Yeah,
The
woo
first
crying
time.
baby in
The,
a
that's right.
creepy hallway.
The first demo scene. The second demo scene episode was Snake? Nokia? No, Angry Birds. Because the Angry Birds studio also got its start in the demo scene. Okay, moving on.
All right, whatever Dave said. On May 8th, ooh, okay.
Yeah, you're good.
On May 18th, 1999, Star Wars Episode 1 Racer was released, coinciding with the debut of Star Wars Episode 1 The Phantom Menace in theaters. This racing game, developed and published by none other than LucasArts, allows players to experience the high speed pod racing scene from the movie, which is one of the film's most dynamic and memorable sequences. Players race against a variety of competitors on multiple alien planets, controlling their pod racers through fast paced tracks filled with obstacles and hazards. Praised for its fast gameplay, diverse environments, and immersive Star Wars atmosphere, Episode 1 Racer became one of the best selling Star Wars games of all time, celebrated for bringing a thrilling element of the Star Wars universe to life.
Did you pod race?
I never played that unless it's an arcade.
It is.
Okay, then yes, that's the one I was thinking of. I wasn't sure if that was the same one, but I remember doing that. Can't even remember what arcade it was, but it was freaking awesome, dude. Get to be on a
I don't.
pod racer.
It has a pod racer. It was excellent.
Moving on May 18th as well, but the year 2009, the classic boxing game Punch-Out made its much anticipated return to the Nintendo Wii, delighting fans with a modern twist on the beloved franchise. Developed by Next Level Games and published by Nintendo, this revival maintained the cartoonish charm and challenging gameplay of the original NES title. Players step into the shoes of Little Mac, a rising boxer, as he battles his way through a series of increasingly tough opponents to claim the championship title. Renowned for its precise controls, engaging character animations, and strategic boxing mechanics, Punch-Out on the Wii successfully recaptured the spirit of the original while introducing the series to a new generation of gamers. And if you want to learn about the original Punch-Out, we did an episode on that.
What episode do you think it was?
124.
You think it was 124?
I don't know.
It was episode 60.
Woo, I was close.
All right.
And to round out our game week in gaming history, on May 18th, 2010, Prince of Persia The Forgotten Sands was released, adding another chapter to the storied Prince of Persia franchise. Developed by Ubisoft, this installment was timed to coincide with the release of the Prince of Persia film, aiming to draw both new fans and longtime followers of the series. The game returns to the timeline set by the critically acclaimed Sands of Time, filling in the gap between the original trilogy's games. It features a blend of new and familiar gameplay elements, including acrobatic maneuvers and time control powers, enhancing the platforming and combat experience. The Forgotten Sands expanded on the series' lore, offering players deeper insight into the prince's journey and his struggle to save his kingdom from destruction. And if you want to learn more about the origin of Prince of Persia, we did an episode on that.
Guess.
76.
58.
Damn.
I know it was right. I mean, it was right next to Punch Out. That was a good time period. So the storied tale of Red Dead Redemption kind of starts back in November of 2002 when Take-Two Interactive, which owns the developer Rockstar Games, publisher slash San Diego, purchased a development studio that was called Angel Studios. Now, we covered Angel Studios before. Angel Studios has a long history, but we covered it way back in episode 36. Long time ago. We love historical context around here. So I thought that we could revisit the history of Angel Studios, but maybe a more abbreviated version, uh, so we can kind of learn how we got to this point. So Angel Studios was founded in 1984 by Diego Angel. He was originally from Colombia, but he moved to Chicago in 1971. He attended the Art Institute of Chicago, and there he grew fond of computer animation. In the beginning of what the studio did, they worked on the visual side, visual effects, early computer generated graphics on commercials for companies such as Nintendo, Polaroid, Cobra Golf, among others. They created some of the early animated logos for HBO and ESPN. Then the studio expanded into music videos and film. They won an award for the music video for Peter Gabriel's Kiss the Frog. I believe they won awards for the CGI effects in the 1992 film The Lawnmower Man. I remember the last time we had this conversation, you had never ever seen The Lawnmower Man whatsoever.
Yeah, I still have not.
And the fun fact about the Lawnmower Man that I remember, because I'm weird like that, is I believe it's the first film ever to have a like computer simulated sex scene in it.
Oh,
So
I'm not surprised you would remember that.
I know. See, that's what I mean. That's what I'm saying. So in the early '90s, Angel Studios collaborated with Silicon Graphics on some tech demos. Now, Silicon Graphics is a company we've heard time and time again. Specifically, they've come up in the early '90s discussions about Nintendo software. One of the things that Silicon graphic workstations were used to develop was Donkey Kong Country. We did a whole episode on Donkey Kong Country, and it was a big deal that they were able to use those workstations to create the graphics in Donkey Kong Country. It was a very impressive show of technology for the time. Now, Nintendo was really impressed with the tech demos that Angel Studios was putting out with the Silicon Graphics workstations. And so they invited them to come talk about future projects, Angel specifically. So Nintendo and Angel hit it off. They signed an agreement that made Angel Studios one of the partners for Nintendo's upcoming Ultra console, which ended up being the Nintendo 64. In fact, in February of 1995, when Nintendo was announcing the 64 and its lineup of games, they announced a quote unquote dream team of third party developers that would be making software for the Nintendo 64. And Angel Studios was part of the dream team. As part of said dream team, they developed two baseball games featuring Ken Griffey Jr., Major League Baseball and Slugfest. And they also had a very unique opportunity to work with the man himself, Shigeru Miyamoto, on a game called Buggy Boogie. Now, Buggy Boogie ended up being canceled, and the ideas from it, Nintendo's ideas from it at least, became the prototype for Diddy Kong Racing. So that's the pedigree of that. But because Nintendo didn't use the tech demo, they just kind of used the ideas and moved on. Angel Studios was left with a very well polished tech demo that they used to solicit their abilities on the Nintendo 64 to other companies, trying to solicit work from them. And this resulted in them being hired by Capcom in 1997 to port Resident Evil 2 over to the Nintendo 64. Then the team decided that they wanted to try their hand at the racing market. It was oversaturated at the time. This was 98, 99, but they wanted to try their hand on it. So they partnered up with Microsoft as a publisher, and they developed a game called Midtown Madness. Now, Midtown Madness was decently popular, and that caught the attention of Rockstar Games. And because of that, Rockstar tapped the now experience, the racing game experience of Angel Studios to help create their own racing franchises. Namely, they helped develop the Midnight Club series and they helped develop the Smuggler's Run series. Were you fans of either of those, Rob?
I was a fan of both. I definitely played Smuggler's Run a hell of a lot more than Midnight Club, but the one I think I had the dub edition, and I drove around.
Gotcha. So, Jamie King, one of the co founders of Rockstar, stated in a 2018 Polygon interview that we were making Grand Theft Auto 3, and there were two games that we were obsessed with in the office. One was Counter Strike, and the other was Midtown Madness for the PC, to the point that some people had the steering wheels and everything. At lunchtime, we would have multiplayer Midtown Madness racing sessions, and because of that, we found Angel Studios. So it's fun, right? Because even game developers can be fans of games and game developers, and in this case, it was that fandom that brought these two developers together. Even when Angel Studios wasn't working on Rockstar projects, the team would visit Angel Studios several times a year just to see what tech the team was working on. They were known with their work in music videos and then the Silicon workstations and the tech demos. They had a reputation for being on like the cutting edge of everything.
That's pretty
At this
impressive.
I mean, to hold on to it for that many years, you know what I mean? And the
Yeah.
transition from film into video games, a lot of studios did not have success in that. Like some also go differently. I was going to use Final Fantasy as an example. When they went backwards, they went from video games to movies and failed. But at the time when Angel Studios caught the attention of Rockstar, they were actually working on a project with Capcom. They had developed that relationship with Capcom when they ported Resident Evil 2 over to the Nintendo 64, and that relationship never really ended. So they continued to work on a project with Capcom. This was, at this point, a Western themed video game. It didn't start out this way. This game in the beginning that they had with Capcom, it was called SWAT, as in like SWAT teams, special weapons and tactic teams, right? And this project was originally a third person shooter that involved a 7-piece SWAT team. But Capcom, their connection at Capcom, kept coming up with different ideas. There's actually Okamori. No, what's his name? I can't think of his name. It was the guy that helped develop Street Fighter. In any case, eventually he came up with the idea that he wanted to do a Western. And so they kind of changed this concept of a SWAT team. So was special weapons and tactics, and it became spaghetti Western action team, right?
Nice. That's awesome.
And so they started to work
I
on a
remember that actually.
They started to work on a Western. And as they're working on this Western, the two head guys from Rockstar, Sam and Dan Hauser, the Hauser brothers, they noticed this. They were very interested in a Western. These guys are key figures in Rockstar. They are the ones who were instrumental in bringing Grand Theft Auto into the Rockstar family. The original Grand Theft Auto wasn't made by Rockstar. It was made by a company called DMA Design. And the Hauser brothers worked for a parent company called Take Two Interactive, and they helped bring all these studios over to Take Two. And then the Rockstar label was created. It was meant to be the high-end publishing label of Take Two Interactive. And they developed this high-end publishing label, and they started to bring all these great franchises into it. And Grand Theft Auto was pretty much the first big one, and the Hauser brothers were instrumental in doing it. So they're like the guys for Rockstar now. They're the heads of Rockstar, and they're fans of Angel Studios, and Angel Diego. He befriended the Hauser brothers. He called them weird guys who like tequila and a lot more things in an interview. He added they were crazy and they were good, but they always allowed us to be ourselves, right? So they see that they're working on this Western, and it's got their interest because they had their own notion of doing a Western, right? So somewhere around 2002, Angel decides that he wants to sell his company. So he reaches out to all these past partners. Microsoft, they had worked with Activision at some point, Rockstar Games. They reached out to everyone and said, "Hey, I'm interested in selling the studio." And they managed to work it out with Rockstar Games. They were eventually able to work out a deal. The story goes, at first they sent Diego a lowball offer, and he called them out on it, and so they upped it to a reasonable offer, and he accepted. In November 2002, Take-Two Interactive bought Angel Studios, and it was renamed Rockstar San Diego. Once they owned the studio, the group had the opportunity to sit down and look at all the projects that the studio was working on to see which was worth keeping. And of course, they already had, like, in their mind, this project, this Western, that Angel had started with Capcom a few years earlier. And at this point, that project had been shelved. They did. It just turns out Angel Studios did not have a good working relationship with Capcom, and they kept changing ideas, and then things happened, and that project was shelved by this point. So the Hauser brothers buy the studio, and when that relationship with Capcom dissolved, the Western project came with it because it was going nowhere. And so that's what they were interested in. And they, among other things, but they greenlit that project that they would, as one they would like to see through. Now, that game, Spaghetti Western Action Team, or whatever it is, SWAT, that game would become Red Dead Revolver, which is the first game in the Red Dead series. Now, we covered Red Dead Revolver. It was episode 36 of our podcast. Our format was a little different back then, so the episodes are not quite like they are today, but there are more details into the history of Red Dead Revolver than we're covering here. So if you'd like to learn more, just, keep an open mind and go check out episode 36. So in May of 2004, Red Dead Revolver gets released, and the decision was made pretty quickly that Rockstar wanted to create another Western game because Revolver didn't fundamentally play like a Rockstar game, right? They knew that they always wanted to make a Western, and essentially when they bought Red Dead Revolver, they bought someone else's game and they finished it. But if you go back and you play Red Dead Revolver, and this is something we talk about in that episode because we talked more about the games themselves and their history back then, Red Dead Revolver does not play like the rest of the Red Deads. It is not an open world game. It is a linear shooter. It's different. It's like I said, they finished someone else's game, but they were still interested in making their Western, right? Like they had a game in mind. By the time they made Red Dead Revolver, they had also just released Grand Theft Auto San Andreas that same year, and they were in the middle of work on Bully. So by this time, the identity, what it meant to be a Rockstar game, so to speak, their bread and butter, this open world immersive experience, they were refining it. They were working on it, and they knew what they wanted at this point. And aside from this, they always had this vision, according to various people, of what they wanted out of a Western. And they knew that up until this point, the fulfillment of their vision was going to require a new generation of home consoles, which in this case were right around the corner from the Xbox 360 and the PlayStation 3. And then there's just this need to bring all the tools together extended past the consoles. You see, up until this point, the studios that were developing this style of games for Rockstar, like Grand Theft Auto 3, like San Andreas, they had been using another engine to do so. It was Criterion's renderware engine. All, like I said, all the Grand Theft Autos from 3. I think the first one to not use it was Liberty City Stories, so that makes Grand Theft Auto 3, San Andreas, and Vice City. They're all developed on the renderware engine, and then there's other games tucked in. But the team at Rockstar really wanted to move away from using someone else's game engine. And the engine that Angel Studios had been using for many of their games, because they were, again, cutting edge technology, they had been using what they call Age, the Angel game engine. And that was just what Rockstar needed to move forward. And in 2004, when all this is going on, Electronic Arts was actually in the process of buying Criterion. So there was a need to find another alternative as well because that renderware engine was going to one of their main competitors. So this leads to one other interesting stop en route to the creation of Red Dead Redemption. You see, when Rockstar brought the Angel engine over, and they were in that learn how to use our new tools phase, they were particularly interested in seeing how well it could perform when it was focused on a singular idea. And so they dug into a list and talked about subject matters that the team as a whole was interested in. And what they came up with was table tennis.
Oh,
They went back to the very beginning of video games to make the Pong of the modern generation, so to speak. The team at Rockstar San Diego decided that they wanted to make a sports game with the intensity of a fighting game and the sense of speed and control that would make playing it a more intense and visceral experience than had been previously possible with sports games. Do you remember the game I'm talking about at all? They felt that table tennis was a perfect sport for this because it's so fast moving. They had, like, realistically, they had never really successfully been made into a game before. And if there's one thing that Rockstar likes to do, or looks to do, looks, what they're known for, it's to do something different from everyone else, right? Better. Let's say to do something better than everyone else. And so the first game that was ever developed using Rockstar's shiny new Rage engine, which is now known as the Rockstar Advanced Game Engine, was Rockstar Games Presents Table Tennis, released in 2006. Do you remember that game at all?
Nope, sure don't.
I do, man. People bought that thing left and right. It was a successful technical demonstration, so to speak. And so the lessons that the team learned while making it would stick with them into the development of the topic today, which is Red Dead Redemption. And speaking of successful demonstrations, did you know that it's easier than ever to create your own podcast? Do you, dear listener, have something completely new that you'd like to give to the world? Have you ever considered making your own podcast? You should know that our friends at Zencaster have created an all-in-one podcasting suite of tools that makes it easier than ever to create your own podcast.
With Zencaster, it's super easy to record a podcast. Everyone logs in using their web browser, and you just start recording a high quality podcast right away. It allows you to record up to 4K video with your guests, and with Zencaster's multi layered backups, you always have the highest quality recordings, even if the connection is unstable.
And with Zencaster, you never have to worry about what you sound like. Their post-production process makes you sound buttery smooth. It automatically removes all those filler words, removes all those awkward pauses. You can set the right podcast loudness, reduce background noise, just select all the options you want, click a button, and away it goes. When it's done, you'll get an email that says your post-production's ready. You go, you download it, you can do whatever you want with it from there.
And if the thought of podcasting overwhelms you because you think you need tons of different tools and services, relax. Those days are over. With Zencaster's all in one podcasting platform, you can create your podcast all in one place, do all that editing Dave talked about, and distribute it to major destinations.
So if you'd like to start your own podcast, or maybe you're looking to take your current podcast to the next level, we've got a deal for you. Go to zencaster.com/pricing and use our offer code memory card lane, and you can get 30% off the first month of any Zencaster paid plan.
Sign up for Zencaster today, and you can experience the same ease in producing your own high quality podcast as we do each week. Go out and share your idea with the world.
Yeah, share those ideas. And speaking of sharing ideas, we had just talked about the fact that they made Rockstar Presents Table Tennis in 2006, and basically they learned a bunch of lessons about the Rage engine there. So now they had an engine, and the new consoles were on the way. The seventh generation Xbox 360 and the PlayStation 3, and they had Grand Theft Autos under their belt and Bully and all this. And so the team kind of had all the pieces finally. So they brought together a core development team composed of some of the core members of the San Andreas team and some of the core members of the Red Dead Revolver team together to basically create a new game in the Red Dead series. And they all got to work making their new vision for an immersive open world game. They looked at films like The Wild Bunch, High Plains Drifter, Unforgiven, and The Proposition for inspiration, and made the decision to develop in a time period slightly after most Westerns, which was 1911, because they wanted to allow for a setting in which the Old West was transforming into the modern world. So that allowed them to have, the Western theme, but also the trains, for instance, because that was a transitional thing. So, which we love robbing trains in this game.
Oh, do we now?
Have you played, before I go on, have you played either of the Red Deads?
I started to.
You started the second one. How
Correct.
long would you say you played into it?
Got
Just not.
out of the mountain.
So when the world opens up, basically.
Yarp. That'll do it.
You don't do open world games, though, do you?
I wouldn't say I don't.
You just couldn't follow through on this one?
I don't. I feel like I might have had it on the Xbox, and it was kind of around the time that I was moving more towards PC, and a lot of my console only games just kind of went off to the wayside.
Gotcha. Do you have friends that are into Red Dead Redemption?
I have friends that play. A previous guest of ours, Jerry,
Gotcha. Awesome.
but other than him, I'm not really sure.
All right.
Yeah, I don't
So,
know. I feel like you're the only other person I know.
I'm a big fan.
Well, I know you are. That's what I'm saying.
It's weird to me because, like, I'll get into it. Like, these are best-selling titles and some of the highest rated games of all time. They're frequently on the list of best video games of all time. They're on a lot of people's list, I would think. But sometimes I ask those questions because I feel biased. Like, I know I'm a fan. I'm a big fan of everything Rockstar, really, and I know you're a Grand Theft Auto fan, so you can relate in a lot of ways.
Oh yeah, Rockstar makes fantastic games.
But we're gonna go into it. But I've said this before, in particular about Red Dead Redemption 2. But Red Dead Redemption 1 was a good step in the right direction. I don't think I've ever played any other single video game that is more immersive than these games. Red Dead Redemption 2 for me is the pinnacle of immersion. Like, it's fantastic. So Christian Mesa, I'm gonna go with Canamessa, who is the lead designer for Red Dead Redemption, said in a 2010 GameFan interview that while most westerns play off the conventional myth of the West, the team at Rockstar chose their overarching theme to be the death of the West. That's again lends into their time period of 1911 when there are storylines in which like the modern world was infringing on the old West basically. So they that's a theme that they wrote over 2 years. The writers, which included Canamessa and Dan Hauser, one of the Hauser brothers, they wrote a 1,500-page script.
Wow.
I mean, a movie's like, in general, like a movie, as a rule of thumb, you have a page a minute of movie, right? So if you have a 90-minute movie, that you're at 90 pages. And these guys wrote a 1,500. It's the equivalent of like 23 full length motion pictures or something like that, like in the end, or
Yeah, that's insane.
over.
That's a
Yeah.
lot.
In fact, and it wasn't just them, to be fair. So the studio started a practice during the development of Vice City, actually, where several employees across the company would work on different parts of the script. So while these guys were likely penning out the overall themes, the main storyline, there were employees that were assigned pedestrian dialogue, and then there were likely employees that were assigned specific side characters and their quests. They developed a style guide, a Bible, so to speak. We've talked about game design Bibles before. So there was a style guide for these writers that were given, specific sayings and language of the time so that all members of the writing team could stay consistent. Within that script, there are approximately 450 characters. There's about 50 main characters, right? So your main characters and all the side quests and stuff like that, and then about 100 incidental ones, and then the other 300 are like the random NPCs that you would bump into everywhere. So,
Wow.
and it should come as no surprise that there are a lot of historical references that the team at Rockstar took inspiration from. In fact, back when this game came out, Rockstar actually published a series of articles on their website that were titled The True West: History That Helped Inspire Red Dead Redemption. And they had biographies for characters that were the direct inspiration of people they put in the game. They were characters like Confederate soldier Frank James, who was the brother of outlaw Jesse James, the obviously not as well known brother of Jesse James. Canadian born. I mean, you don't know who Frank James is, right?
No, absolutely not.
But
It's
you
still
know,
funny to
but
me.
you know who the hell Jesse James is.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I mean, it's funny to me to be like, yeah, they put Frank James in there. Who the hell's Frank James? Oh, he's the brother of Jesse James. Jesse James had a brother. Well, unless you study Western history, you'd never really know the truth to that. Confederate soldier Frank James. It doesn't matter. Canadian born outlaw Pearl Hart. Pinkerton agent Tom Horn. So there's all these figures. They're all these figures, but arguably what I kind of just alluded to, talking about how I think the immersion in these games are better, the biggest and most important character in the Red Dead Redemption was probably the world itself. In that earlier referenced GameFan interview, Christian Canamessa said that creating a huge open space and then making it beautiful and believable and full of things to do was probably the biggest challenge we faced in making Red Dead Redemption. First, we had to squeeze as much processing power as possible from the consoles using our Rage engine, and we also used that power to deliver the finest details. Not only do our characters and environment look and behave realistically, but telegraph wires sway in the wind, and puddles will pool and then dry after a storm. Just to kind of give you two little ideas of the detail that they put in these games. How many freaking games can you say have the electrical wires sway in the wind?
Not very many.
Right. He goes on to say that they had to find ways to fill the open spaces between towns with the right amount of action. And they partly did so by creating a living, breathing ecosystem full of over 40 animals. And you can hunt most of these animals. You can hunt all the animals. There aren't any animals you can't hunt. You can hunt all the animals. You can cook them. You can skin them. It's the real deal. Another way they filled the space, which we see in the Grand Theft Auto series, Rob, was by creating a system that generates random events all around you. You you could see a wagon attacked by bandits at the roadside. There would be roadside executions. Maybe you tripped on an official who needed help capturing escaped convicts. So in Red Dead, they had all these random events that could pop up while you were cruising through the landscapes. And through the design of all of this, the team at Rockstar San Diego worked very hard to deliver gameplay that covered all of the classic Western moments that you see in film and television. Things like Mexican standoffs and lassoing horses and people, driving stagecoaches, riding with the cavalry, blowing up bridges, hunting buffalo, just to name a few. The team really sought out to deliver a complete Western experience. The American frontier was researched by the team in order to make it all happen. They organized trips to Washington, D.C., they visited the Library of Congress and the National Archives building. They took road trips to photograph real environments, and they put it all together. It was entirely a team effort. Rockstar San Diego had a core team of about 180 people, but they utilized help from other Rockstar studios like Rockstar Leeds. Rockstar Leeds had previously worked on Max Payne and given support to Rockstar North on Liberty City and Vice City stories. Speaking of Rockstar North, they were also brought into the development of Red Dead Redemption. Rockstar North, if you don't know, they created the Grand Theft Auto series when they were DMA Design, and then, as I mentioned with the Hauser story, they were all made part of the Rockstar family. We actually covered that story, the original Grand Theft Auto and DMA Design, into the Rockstar family in episode. I don't know if we got to the Rockstar family. Anyways, that was episode 112. So if you want to learn about DMA design before Grand Theft Auto got into the 3D era, go check out that episode because I don't think we covered any 3D Grand Theft Autos yet. Right?
No, not
Yeah,
in depth, just mentioned.
yeah. Just mentioned we covered the 2D, the top down Grand Theft Autos in that episode.
Yeah. Or
Rockstar
part.
New England, Rockstar Toronto, other support Rockstar studios. They also helped with development. All in all, Rob, it took over 1,000 people to create Red Dead Redemption over a 5-year development period.
Jesus. That's a lot.
It was estimated at the time, we've never got official numbers, but it was estimated at the time to have cost Rockstar between 80 and $100 million of development, which at the time made it one of the, if not the most expensive video game ever created. It was one of the, I think the Halos were more expensive at the time. Right now, even if you add inflation to that, it doesn't even qualify for the top 10 or maybe even top 20 of that list nowadays. I think the ones that are up there are like Fortnite, which has been around forever. Destiny, if I'm not mistaken, they've already spent between Destiny and it's because Destiny's never stopped. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I think the cost for Destiny development is over $600 million at this point.
Jesus.
As is Star Citizen. Star Citizen, I think, is at 630. So there are games that are way more than $100 million at this point. But at the time, that was pretty much unheard of, and it was made a lot of news and it was talked about. So it was very expensive. I mean, over 1,000 people to create it is pretty amazing, if you ask me. So,
Yeah, it is.
with that being said, it was not, however, according to some sources, the most pleasant development process. In January of 2010, that went by the handle Rockstar Spouse posted on Gamasutra that studio executives had been imposing unreasonable working conditions upon the studios since March of 2009. In their It was a blog post, like a forum post. In their post, the wife goes on to explain that studio executives have forced employees to work 12-hour days, including Saturdays, so 6 days a week, 12 hours a day, while cutting overtime pay and taking away holidays. Employees are looked down upon for taking any time off and constantly being misled as to when the quote unquote crunch period will let up. Once this was posted, other anonymous wives joined the comments to confirm what the Rockstar Spouse had been saying. And so, in order to get through this crunch period, Rockstar brought in more support. That's probably when they blew up over 1,000 people. And they made, as they brought people in, it affected other projects. So, in the midst of the decision to move people over to the development of Red Dead Redemption, they brought one of the other studios over, and they had to cancel the Midnight Club series. So there have not been any Midnight Club series since, because that studio was put on Red Dead Redemption, and they never ever got back to making any more Midnight Club games ever, if I'm not mistaken. So as they brought these studios over, there were key employees that reportedly quit because they didn't want to be dragged into what was already a hot mess. And as this was happening, several former Rockstar employees came out and basically said that they had similar working experience on Rockstar projects.
Wow.
Supposedly, this led to changes in Rockstar's workflow. I said supposedly because there is more to the story, but that's a story for another day and another project, which ironically enough is the sequel to this, that will cover hopefully a different. Red Dead Redemption 2 could have its own episode. So, as you can imagine, Rob, when you are spending that much money and manpower towards making a game, you're going to do everything you can to ensure its success. And
Yeah.
as a result, this game received an extensive marketing campaign. They targeted ads in usual places like IGN, GameSpot, and YouTube, for instance. But what you might not remember that's interesting about this one is that they ran a huge on screen movie theater campaign. You remember movie theaters? They were a thing before the pandemic. We used to go to places and watch movies on giant screens.
In the long, long ago.
In the before, the team at Rockstar, the marketing team at Rockstar, felt that the game's cinematic nature lent itself well to the movie theaters. And so they advertised it before such movies as Robin Hood, Iron Man 2, and The Prince of Persia. They also had someone use the in game engine to produce a 30-minute machinima about John Marston looking for one of his friends, Bill Williamson. That actually debuted on Fox on May 29th, 2010 at midnight. How many games do you know even to this day, Rob, that get that kind of airtime before the game is established? They got Fox to play a 30-minute. I'm not gonna say cartoon. Machinima, if you don't know the term, Machinimas are movies that are made in the game engine. So they literally made a movie using the game engine to Red Dead Redemption. But they made a 30-minute like in-game cutscene and they played it on Fox as hype for this game coming out.
Yeah, that's freaking insane. I don't know many games that do that.
It was something else, man. I mean, nowadays they don't have to because YouTube is a much like you people get more information from places like YouTube than they do the major network channels nowadays, you know.
Yeah, that's true too.
It was something else. The hype just kept building and building. It was originally supposed to come out in late 2009, then they delayed it to April 2010, and as that rolled around it got pushed back again to May 18th, 2010, which is where it released. And of course, we know now that it has been an absolute success, right?
Yeah, I suppose. I
The
mean,
last sales numbers that I could find have it as having sold more than 23 million copies. Not too shabby.
no, that's a good little amount.
It is so popular that when they were developing backward compatibility, as they made the switch from the Xbox 360 to the Xbox One, it was one of the most requested titles for backward compatibility. And now that we've gone a generation beyond that with the Xbox Series X, they made it an Xbox Series X enhanced title, meaning that 14 years after its release, it is now playable in 4K resolution, which is just like that blows my mind, to be honest with you. The fact that the development that long ago was able to be so future proof too blows my mind, right?
Yeah, that is insane.
It is though. If you have a Series X, it'll enhance it. It'll play it in 4K at like I'm guessing 60 frames. Might be 30 frames. I don't know. Don't hold me to any of that. I didn't look up the specifics, so
Should have, Dave.
I know. I know. But the Red Dead Redemptions are amazing games if you've never played them. I can't recommend them enough. I know that I know that they're not for everyone, right? Some people sit down and they need to play video games that just constantly have something going on. They need to be spoon fed. You know, people that like to play online games against other people need the action. People that like to play, video games that I equate to big movie blockbusters where something's always happening need to have a linear game style. But Red Dead Redemption is a style of game, in my opinion, that's something very different. And Rob, you can expand on this too, because Grand Theft Auto is very much the same. Rockstar doesn't make games, in my opinion. I think in the case of this, their bread and butter, like their style, is that they make worlds that you can spend time in more than anything.
Yeah, I definitely agree to that. I mean, in obviously I have only played a very small amount of this, but I could still get the idea from it that it was no different than how Grand Theft Auto is. And honestly, I've spent way more hours just doing random stuff than following the story.
Well, that was my question with Grand Theft Auto. Grand Theft Auto 5, the most recent one, have you finished the story?
Several times, yes.
Okay, all right. So you have played through that. I know people that haven't. I know people that have never really tried to finish the story. They go and look. I'm gonna take it back to Red Dead Redemption. So I've never beat the second one, Red Dead Redemption 2. I've never beat it. This one I beat. I've 100%ed this game more than once, in the 14 years since it's been out. But the second one I get lost in the world because I start going places and then I want to hunt the animals and then I want to fish the fish and then I want to explore this cave and I want to explore this city and I just keep getting lost in everything else there is to do because again it's a world. And that's my favorite thing about opening these games is that I can just open them up and go places. I don't have to do things. Don't get me wrong, there are both of the Red Dead Redemptions have amazing stories. Like the second one is I haven't finished it. I already know the story because it's hard to not have things spoiled for you in this day and age. And So I can tell you that both of them have absolutely amazing stories. And this, but for me, I don't think that anyone else does world building better than this. I mean, there are games that you can argue are on the same level. I would say The Witcher 3 is on the same level with Red Dead Redemption. I don't know what else do you think is up there. Any others that are great at world building, Rob? I mean, maybe games like Destiny in a different respect, but but you got to give Destiny a lot of wiggle room because it's science fiction, so they get to dictate what the world is.
Yeah, I could see that.
No, I don't know if I would. I think The Witcher and Red Dead are in classes all by themselves because it's not just the story. Like you go to the shack in the woods and you meet the people living in there and you learn their story, and then those random events make you feel like you're rescuing a criminal who claims he's innocent, or you're saving people from roadside execution. Like everywhere you go, it feels like a living, breathing world. I think more so than just about anything. So I can't recommend playing the Red Deads enough if you've never had a chance to do so. And again, if you have the modern Xbox, like it's not aged. It's not aged because the one thing that ages the most in things is the graphics, and they've kept the graphics with each subsequent generation. We're now able to play it in the graphics in the 4K of the current generation. Now, that being said, there's a difference between Red Dead 1 and Red Dead 2 and what those graphics look like, but that doesn't mean it looks bad. They just learn how to make it look better in the time between the two games. So,
Yeah.
but I can't recommend enough. I think Red Dead Redemption is an excellent game. I think that the team put a lot of love and consideration into it, and money, obviously,
Yeah.
and it shows. It deserves, in my opinion, it deserves to be on those lists of best video games. It's definitely on mine. So, but there are a lot of other games that have kind of gone into this, games that have come along the way, like table tennis and the Grand Theft Autos. If it wasn't for the experience that Rockstar North had gotten from doing those 3D Grand Theft Autos, like Grand Theft Auto 3 and San Andreas, we may have never gotten here. And if DMA Designs hadn't created Grand Theft Auto in the first place, we may have never got here. Who knows? You know what I mean? So it's really important to learn the history, from the beginning of these series and these companies. And of course, we've covered a lot of this before. DMA Designs, we did a whole episode on Grand Theft Auto and DMA Designs as it, into the 2-day phase. And of course, you can check them all out by going to our website, www.memorycardlane.com. Rob, what else can people do on our website?
Well, Dave, you can find a calendar of our future episodes. You can find a link to our Discord server where you can come hang out with Dave and I and talk games or whatever else may pop up. You can find a link to our Patreon where you can help support us and get access to ad-free and unedited episodes of our podcast. And you can also find links to our social media, where I can be found on several platforms as Rob_O_Raptor and Dave.
I can be found on various platforms as David is Wrong. Each week, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to tell you a story. It's going to be about one topic relevant to the current world, current week, current world. I guess current week in gaming history. We talk about games, consoles, technology, people, just something new as a topic that's relevant to the publication date of these episodes. And one of the things I always look for when I tell these stories is I'm looking for something I don't know. I'm looking for something I don't know. I'm looking for something that a casual video gamer also doesn't know. Because most of the time, we don't ever dive into the development sagas of any of these games. And that's the fun of it. Because every week I sit down and I get to learn new things. And then I get super excited every week because I get to learn new things. And then I get to come here and I get to teach all of you new things. And it's so much fun every week sitting down to do this cycle of teaching and learning. And I love it, and I don't intend on stopping anytime soon. So, in celebration of that cycle, we like to talk about our takeaways each week, what we learned. So, Rob, what did you learn today?
Well, I think my biggest takeaway is the fact that it took 1,000 people 5 years
Wow.
to develop. That's just like I don't think a whole lot on the size of development teams and length of things. Like, but I don't, most of the things I know are generally seemingly developed a lot quicker, or it's just that it's games that I don't really know anything about, and I'm just like, oh, cool, it's here. And that's a large figure, a lot of time, a lot of people, and obviously it paid off for them. But that's just, and I mean, 80 to 100 million, man. It's just
Yeah,
all of that. All of that is just it's a lot. It's very good that it did well because that's a lot.
I agree.
So
I think it's fantastic, and
that's it for me, Dave. What about yourself?
I enjoyed learning about all the specific care that went into this game. I didn't go too deep into detail for it because I really wanted to talk about how we kind of got here, with the history of Angel Studios and that, because it had been 3 years since we talked about it before, and it was time to revisit it again. Also again, the format was different last time we revisited, so our storytelling is a little different nowadays. It was time to revisit it, and they spent a lot of time doing research, in the history and going to the sites and everything. It was really fascinating to see all of the care that they put into this game, where all of the intricate details come from. I mean, it is so obvious. It's just so obvious that they give a crap. That's all. I mean, and not just with this game. Look at other Rockstar games, the Rockstar North, Grand Theft Auto series. I know we're all excited for Grand Theft Auto 6 because we know the same consideration is going to be given to that too. So I enjoyed learning about all of that. Genuinely, I did. So
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, yeah, I guess the other big thing, thinking a little more of it, is the large script that went into it.
Oh,
I
that was
mean,
a fun one. I agree. Thinking about writing 1,500 pages over 2 years is nuts. That's nuts. So
yeah, it's just mind blowing the sheer amount of work and time, effort, and money that went into this. It's all a lot.
yeah, it is. It is. But look at what giving that much time and money results in when you do it right.
No, that's very true. Instead of you know using it for the wrong things and getting crap product that everyone hates, they clearly did well because it sold pretty damn well, and it's still talked about today.
I mean, there are other games at this point in history that have long development cycles and large teams, and they're not nearly as successful, for various reasons. That'd probably be something fun to look at. Like, did they have as clear of a vision? Did they have a 1,500-page script? What was the leadership like? Like, there's probably reasons why, but these guys took a very large team over a long period of time and they made a successful game with it. And personally, I think that's an amazing achievement. That's incredibly difficult to do from my I just think that's incredibly difficult to do, and we've seen it fail before. So I mean, it just, to me, it makes this even more impressive. So
No, absolutely, I'm with you 100% on that.
awesome. Well, before we take it out of here and into next week, is there anything that you'd like to add to today's episode?
Well, Dave, as always, I want to take a quick moment to say thank you so much to all of our listeners. It means the world to us to have you here, and we hope that you enjoy getting to learn a little bit about some of these games that you may love. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you. All right, well, that's a wrap on today's exploration into the development of Red Dead Redemption. We delved deep into the intricate crafting of its expansive open world, its attention to historical detail, and the countless hours spent perfecting its immersive storytelling. It's been a ride through the frontier of game development, showcasing the dedication needed to bring such a monumental game to life. Thank you for settling up with us as we journey through the studios behind this landmark in gaming history. But next week, we're zooming over to a different kind of adventure with Sega Sonic the Hedgehog. We'll dive into the unique development of Sonic's arcade experiences, specifically focusing on these art cabinets that grace the arcades of Japan, which never made their way to international shores. So prepare to explore how these games contributed to the Sonic legacy and why they remained exclusive treasures of the Japanese arcade scene. So lace up your fastest sneakers and prepare for a supersonic episode as we take next week's trip down memory card lane. Do the thing.
Do up, do up, do up.